mean, Hunter Biden, at that point, Hunter Biden literally could have had the corpses of children in his basement. I would not have cared.
The left have no morals but power. Everything they claim to stand for, everything they claim to fight for, everything they claim to value, all of it, will be dropped without a second thought when it comes to either their pursuit of power or should something threaten their consolidation of power. And they will not only drop their so-called moral positions to do these things, in certain circumstances, the mask will drop entirely, and they will reveal themselves to be who they really are, by either saying or, God forbid, doing something incredibly horrible. With Sam Harris here being a perfect example of this. That his Trump derangement syndrome is so bad that he views Trump as such an existential threat to the power of the Democrat Party and the Our Democracy crowd. That he would utter the words, Hunter Biden could literally have had the corpses of dead children in his basement, and I would not have cared. And he says all this in response to the Hunter Biden laptop story that dropped a few weeks before the 2020 election, and the fact that the story was suppressed by social media and lied about by the Democrat-controlled legacy media. And he believes doing so was completely justified in order to stop Trump.
Now, that doesn't answer the people who say it's still completely unfair to not have looked at the laptop in a timely way and to have shut down the New York Post's Twitter account. Like that's a left-wing conspiracy to deny the presidency to Donald Trump. Absolutely it was. Absolutely. Right. But I think it was warranted. Right.
Sam Harris completely admits that he believes it was warranted for social media, Democrats, and the legacy media to conspire to try to deny Trump the presidency by suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story. Now, we all know, had the shoe been on the other foot and Republicans had been conspiring to do these things, Sam Harris would have been demanding something be done about it, just as every other Democrat and leftist would have been doing. Because Sam Harris doesn't have any morals. He only has a belief in the way the world should be. One controlled by Democrats, apparently. And should anything threaten that view, then any means should be taken to protect it. Morals be damned. Sam Harris can talk about how he's for democracy, the Democrat process, and America all he wants. But when he's willing to forego all those things in order to keep what he believes is the right outcome, then those processes clearly don't mean much to him. Only that they produce his desired outcome. And when they don't, then they are no longer useful to him. And this is a mindset that is shared among most Democrats and the left. Because power, and who wields it, is their primary concern above all else. And Democrats and the leftists believe they alone should have the right to wield that power. As James Lindsay has pointed out, saying, something you must understand is that leftists don't merely desire power, they feel they deserve power, that they're entitled to it. They live their lives as though that's true. Carl Benjamin has also pointed out something similar, saying Republicans think it's immoral to cheat, while Democrats think it's immoral to lose. And why would that be? Because Democrats think it's immoral for them not to wield power. So, if that's true, then anything that grants them power or maintains their power is therefore justified. So then it makes sense that someone like Sam Harris would say that he wouldn't care if Hunter Biden had the corpses of children in his basement. Now, Sam Harris and others have claimed that that statement was hyperbole. He was just using it to make a point. Well, I have to call that BS. Democrats and the left have over and over again used horrible and just downright disgusting statements aimed at their political opponents. And when you hear them over and over, and they all try to hide behind them just being hyperbolic, you soon realize these people mean what they say. hyperbole is just the Bailey they hide in, when they get challenged. So, if that is indeed the case, it makes sense when a writer for The Nation writes a column stating she would still vote for Joe Biden even if he boiled babies and ate them. Seriously, that is what she wrote.
Because a writer at The Nation has just added some really important context to the conversation in an article about why she does not believe Tara Reade, but even if she did, she really wouldn't care. Katha Pollitt opens up with this line: "I would vote for Joe Biden if he boiled babies and ate them. He wasn't my candidate, but taking back the White House is that important." Wow. Katha is really bravely exploring the outer reaches of the lesser of two evils philosophy and just what sort of atrocities it might justify.
And there you have it. Taking back the White House is that important. It's all about power. And you might for a moment think that this is just one deranged leftist columnist that has lost her mind. Yet on Twitter, of course, a chorus of like-minded deranged leftists joined in, stating how immoral Joe Biden could be while still getting their vote. Saying such things as, "I would vote for Joe Biden if he raped 100 women at gunpoint. The stakes are high in this election. Even if Biden sexually assaulted me, I'd still vote for him. In fact, in the off chances this has happened, I encourage people that meet this criteria to vote for him anyways. If Biden had raped my child, yes, I'd still prefer him over Trump as POTUS." With even one deranged leftist directly responding to the boiled babies statement saying, "I would vote for Biden if he shat those boiled babies in my mouth and made me chew them. We need to get Trump out for the sake of our country." It's all about power. They care about nothing else except who wields power, and they will concede to anything to make sure it's their guy. And you may think, all these statements are horrible, but not surprising coming from these people. I mean, they hate babies, right? They love abortions. Sam Harris doesn't care about dead children in a basement. So, what's the issue? Well, when you look at what the original columnist was complaining about in the first place, her boiled babies comment, it was in opposition to the Tara Reade sexual assault allegations against Joe Biden. Something that Democrats on the left are supposed to be extremely sensitive to. They routinely decry rape culture. They basically define anything that makes a woman uncomfortable as sexual assault. I mean, they completely lost their minds over Brett Kavanaugh and the so-called sexual allegations against him. They were practically trying to tear the doors down at the Supreme Court, for crying out loud.
These are live images, folks, at the doors of the Supreme Court, where you can see protesters have gathered. They are demanding that their voices be heard as they anticipate the person who will be a new Supreme Court Justice, Judge Brett Kavanaugh, to be sworn in here any moment.
But when it comes to an allegation against Joe Biden, a somewhat credible allegation, I might add, certainly far more credible than the one targeted at Brett Kavanaugh, when it's targeted at Joe Biden, doesn't matter. Sexual assault? Never heard of it. I mean, Joe Biden could be boiling babies and eating them. He could have raped someone. Who cares? We have to vote for him or we might end up with Orange Hitler again. We can't allow Trump to have power again. God forbid. So any semblance of morality goes out the window. And speaking of the Supreme Court, remember when RBG died and Trump dared suggest he was going to nominate someone to fill that spot? You know, the thing he's supposed to do as president? The blue check marks on Twitter went nuts, doing the very same thing they claim Republicans and the right do, inciting violence. Boldly tweeting to burn Congress down before letting Trump try to appoint anyone to SCOTUS. If they even try to replace RBG, we burn the entire fucking thing down. We're shutting this country down if Trump and McConnell try to ram through an appointment before the election. If McConnell jams someone through, which he will, there will be riots. Just on and on and on with the same message of burn it down, riots, and threats of violence. The same type of behavior that Kamala Harris herself condoned and encouraged.
Clear that I know that there are protests still happening in major cities across the United States. I'm just not seeing the reporting on it that I had
that's right.
for the first few weeks.
That's right. But they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop. And they're not, this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And that should be, everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
The left has no shame with how far they're willing to go, because they know basically nothing will hold them accountable. So they not only feel safe in saying horrible things, it's almost as if they feel entitled to say them. To the point where even a state Democrat will outright call for the death of a Republican and his family, right in the state house in front of other elected peers, foregoing any morality they claim to believe in.
To the representative from Lombard, I would like to make him a broth of Legionella and pump it into the water system of his loved one so that they can be infected, they can be mistreated, they can sit and suffer by getting aspirin instead of being properly treated, and ultimately die.
Imagine how sanctimonious and righteous you have to believe yourself to be in order to stand there on the floor of your state house as an elected representative and say such a thing. Imagine how much power you must think you're entitled to think you're not going to get pushback on that. Yet she says it clearly believing what she is saying is entirely justified. Because only the left should be able to say such things. Only the left should have the authority to talk down to and reprimand the little people. Only the left should be able to wield power that gives them this entitled high horse. As that's all they care about. Who has power? Where power comes from, and where power is being directed. And if they find that any of those things are not in line with what they believe, they will demand you give it over to them while claiming that it's the ethical thing to do.
Usually if you're a billionaire, that means that you control a massive system. It means that you own oil supplies. It means that you control textiles. It means that you have a massive labor force under your control. And to be ethical, if you're a billionaire today, the thing that you need to do is give up control and power. So I don't want your money as much as we want your power.
They want power, and as far as they're concerned, it's moral for them to have power. You can find article after article talking about one Democrat power grab after another. From Democrats wanting to make D.C. and Puerto Rico a state in order to get more Democrat senators, giving their party more power, to them wanting to pack the Supreme Court to give the Democrat Party control of it, to even an opinion piece from The Hill saying, for Democrats, it's all about power. With the first paragraph of the article saying, President Biden and big government Democrats are obsessed with power. They want to control whether your kids wear a mask, how much of your money you can keep, and what you can say on social media platforms. Now, Biden's never-ending quest for power has taken a new dark turn. And what is the article referring to? It's talking about H.R. 4, the Democrat bill reshaping election law in the country, taking away from the states something that's codified in the Constitution itself and giving it to the federal government. Now, I'm sure you can find articles as well talking about Republican power grabs. But what do those usually end up being? Republicans shoring up election laws? Republicans in their own states redrawing districts? Republicans having a majority on the Supreme Court? These aren't power grabs. These are the normal functions that both parties participate in. Republicans aren't trying to undo the Constitution or create a state out of an area that cannot be a state simply to give themselves more power. Republicans aren't trying to centralize all power within the federal government. These are the things Democrats are doing. I mean, for crying out loud, Joe Biden used the power of the federal government to force businesses to make their employees take an experimental vaccine. Those are power grabs. And so while Democrats on the left do everything they can to accumulate power and use it to force America to bend to their will, anyone that dares challenge their power is demonized as everything from far-right, domestic terrorist, to semi-fascist, as Joe Biden referred to those who oppose him. With his own press secretary saying MAGA Republicans are an extreme threat.
The president thinks that there is an extremist threat to our democracy. The president has been clear, as he can be, on that particular piece when we talk about a democracy, when we talk about our freedoms. The way that he sees is the MAGA Republicans are the most energized part of the Republican Party. This is an extreme threat to our democracy, to our freedom.
Notice she says is an extreme threat to our democracy. Our democracy, our democracy. This phrase is repeated over and over by Democrats on the left. What they really mean by that phrase is our power. Every time you hear a Democrat say our democracy, replace it with our power, and it will 100% make more sense. Because that's what they don't want to lose. That's what conservatives, MAGA Republicans, and Trump himself all threaten. Democrat power. It's the only moral foundation they have. And if they don't have power, then that's the injustice that must be rectified. Because only they are moral enough to use it. So they should be the only ones with it. And if they don't, they will use any and every means to acquire it. No matter how many corpses of dead children end up in the basement. Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please like and subscribe. You can find me on most social media sites talking about culture and politics. So do look me up and say hello. And take care and God bless.